Hello and welcome to another episode of Training Bytes. My name is Mike Gibb from accountsrecovery.net, and with me again is Mary Shores from Mary Shores Communications, who's here to offer more great insight and advice. Mary Shores is a second-generation agency owner, best-selling author, and creator of the Collection Advantage online program, which is designed to help collectors create and execute high-converting scripting to increase their cash flow and decrease complaints. In this episode, we're going to talk about the traits of a level 10 collector. Mary, I think the first thing we need to do is establish what exactly a level 10 collector is and how do I become one?
I love the concept of level 10. So one of the things that I have really focused on in my career is building level 10 teams. And so to me, what a level 10 collector is kind of like that scale of 1 to 10. So they're a level 10 executor, they're a level 10 communicator, they're a level 10 negotiator. They're a level 10 in the ability to control their own emotions. They're level 10 in the motivation sector. So they're just, that's just a lot of things that I think of when I think of a level 10 collector who is one of my most rock star employees.
So other than taking a lot of guitar lessons to become a rock star, how do I become a rock star collector? What's that process like?
I think the first thing is having some basic understanding of emotional intelligence. So getting into the concept of being able to understand the consumer's situation, being able to understand what the consumer is going through, being able to look at the consumer as someone who's vulnerable, needs help, will help them build that consumer into an ally. I'm always talking about, are you an ally or an enemy? Are you creating connection or conflict? And so someone who's got high emotional intelligence is somebody who's a natural, what I call a super connector. So they're doing things like they're empathetic, they're positive, they use a lot of positive language. And, the last thing is they talk in terms of solutions. So instead of talking about consequences, they talk in terms of opportunity and they talk in terms of solutions.
Is it, is becoming a level 10 collector, is it a combination of something, like say art and science, or is it more one than the other?
Well, I always say there is an art and a science to collecting money. If you're in this job, if you're in this career, a lot of the old schools, I'm old school. I don't know if you're old school, Mike, because you came from a different career, but a lot of us old timers refer to ourselves as old school. And that old school way of doing things had a lot of instinct. So oftentimes when I talk to collection managers or I'm talking to agency owners, they'll talk about that collection instinct they have. Well, you know what that instinct really boils down to is just a set of critical thinking skills that they've developed over the years. And they've learned tips and tricks that work, and they've learned what doesn't work so well, and they've cataloged that in their mind, and they've practiced it over and over and over. Well, one of the brilliant things about being a human being is that we can learn from other people. And so really what it takes to develop a level 10 collector is to actually invest in training them on the art and the science of actually collecting the money. We train them on compliance. We train them on FDCPA and TCPA, and we train them how to use the dialer and the software system. And, we train them on all those things. We need to train them on those things that feel like instincts to us, but we can reverse engineer those into some actual critical thinking skills. And when you do that, you will take your amazing collectors and they'll go through the roof. They will elevate to the next level.
So it's not necessarily changing the instinct of a collector. It's not like the collector, a regular or sort of an ordinary collector or an average collector has the wrong instinct. It's just a matter of sort of reframing that instinct then?
Well, you can cut down on that ramp up time. You know what I mean? So when I was referring to myself and some other people I know as old school, we weren't born old school collectors. It took us years to develop those skills, right? Well, we can just help those new baby collectors out by teaching them the critical thinking, because when you teach them the critical thinking, then their other instincts get sharper. So what appears to us to be instinct is actually like step-by-step processes that we've just self-taught ourselves over the years. And so I really like to just teach my collectors step-by-step processes, one of which I'm going to share with you today.
Well, please. I mean, I was going to ask if you had a tip or an insight for us about how to sort of showcase how that critical thinking process works.
Yeah. And I want to give one more plug into collector development, because
Sure.
collectors, just like consumers, have a lot of fears. They have internal fears of asking for that money. They're worried that the consumer is going to freak out on them at any moment. They're worried when they don't know what to say next. It causes a little bit of anxiety. And some collectors might even feel a little bit guilty, or they feel like they're a bad person for having to ask for money. So when they're really ready to go and they understand inside, outside, backwards, and forwards how to manage those calls, it will help them stay in control and put their communication on autopilot. So I've got this 4-step process today that I want to share, and I call it focusing on the outcome. So I use this in more of a trouble call type of a situation. So let's just say the consumer has a dispute, or they have something that they're complaining about that we need to actually take some time and look into it. So this is not just your everyday average call. This is a little bit of an elevated situation. And so this is my 4-step focus on the outcome process. The first step is you want to gather all the facts. So you want to leave the drama behind. Oftentimes collectors will say, oh, this person was acting like a da. We need to just keep it to the facts. So what's the data? The data looks like develop the timeline. Okay, so what are the dates that are important? Develop the actual facts and what happened on the call, including what the consumer reported to you is the problem. And so from there, you want to determine, step 2, you want to determine the outcome you want. So if it's a dispute, maybe the outcome is you want to solve the dispute and have the consumer agree they owe the money. Maybe if it's a lawsuit threat, a complaint, a very serious complaint, the outcome is you want the consumer to maybe go away in peace. Another thing is you might be striving to get the money. So you want the outcome to be payment in full, right? So whatever is the situation, the second thing you want to do is you want to determine the ideal outcome. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is determine the path. So once you have that outcome in your mind, and maybe you've even written it down, then what you're going to do is you're going to reverse engineer the solution, because there's always a path to every outcome. But see, sometimes we're on a call and we're very reactive. So this is what I mean by critical thinking skills, because if you train your collectors to think this way, instead of just whatever comes flying out of their mouth or whatever's top of mind for them, we can get a plan going. So we reverse engineer this solution based on that outcome that we want. And then the 4th step is to plan the call accordingly. So I'm always talking about in the Collection Advantage program, I teach my signature concept, which is called the communication code. It's a 3-step process. And so when we're doing that planning the call, we're going to use that 3-step process. And the end is going to be where we pitch the solution to the consumer. This process is game changing. If you want to create less grr in your contact center, this process will do it for you.
I don't think there's a collection agency anywhere that doesn't want less grr in their office. So great advice as always, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for your time. We look forward to having you back soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.